Alright, welcome. Today we're going to be taking apart a Dell Inspiron 15 3000 series. This is a 3593. So to begin, we're just going to need a small Phillips bit, and I'll be using a 2.5. So we're just going to remove all of the bottom case screws. Alright, so once you get those screws out or loose, we can remove the bottom case. Just one thing to note, the rear screws did not want to come out very well. You have to kind of pull up on them and unscrew them the rest of the way, but as long as you have them loose, you should be able to take off the bottom case. So I like to get it in the back where you can get your fingers in there where the hinge kind of comes through. And once you get it started, just find the seam between the bottom case and the palm rest. It's kind of a, you can't really get it from the edge. You got to open it up and kind of get the spudger. It's almost like popping a palm rest up and off, but you're actually removing the bottom cover. So let's see if I can get a better view of that. So now that I open the seam, you can kind of see it, and this is where you want to run that spudger. But you can't really get it started until you go in from the, let's see, you got to go kind of in as if you were getting it from above. But you won't be removing the palm rest, you'll be popping the bottom case off. So we're just going to keep following that with the spudger. You might be able to just kind of wiggle it off by now. Once you have it most of the way off, you can just kind of shake it back and forth to get the rest of those fasteners off. Okay, so we have a good view of the inside. So generally, the first thing we like to do is disconnect the battery and remove it. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the screws for the battery and get a little bit more slack on that connector, so it'll make it a little bit easier to disconnect. But you don't necessarily have to remove the battery. I'm just doing it first because I'm going to remove it anyways. Okay, so a little bit more slack on the connector, and you're going to want to kind of unstick that flap of tape there. Just gently peel it back until it's off of the metal part. Then we're going to grab those two tabs with the fingertips and wiggle that battery connector out. So it looks like the RAM is pretty easy to get to, just removing the bottom case. You have a SSD slot here, so the SSD is pretty easy to also get to. Wi-Fi card, fan and heatsink. The keyboard is not really replaceable since it's held in with some melted plastic. And then if you have an auxiliary hard drive, it's just right here up top. So I like these. I like the laptops that have a they leave it open and easy to get to the normally upgradable stuff, or the stuff that you have to sometimes replace. So I like not having to remove a whole bunch of parts to get to the normal stuff. Okay, so the screw on this side looks like it's retained in the back, so you'll be able to loosen it but not remove it. And then we'll pull that SSD free from the slot. Okay, that's going to be a smaller Phillips bit. So it looks like the slot will take a 2280. One of these tiny ones. but it is an NVMe slot. It's possibly a hybrid, you'd have to check, but it is keyed for an NVMe. Alright, so we will switch back to the 2.5 and continue. So I'm gonna just spread those retainers and remove the RAM stick. PC4 266.6. So that'll be DDR4 RAM. Go ahead and remove the screw for the Wi-Fi bracket. Remove the Wi-Fi antennas, and then you can pull that Wi-Fi card out. Alright, so next we're going to do the fan. Just out of observation, if you need to replace your screen assembly or your video cable, the connections look pretty easy to get to. If you need to take off your LCD, it looks like you can get to pretty much everything once you remove the bottom case. So if I was going to take the screen off, disconnect the cables that are coming out of the screen, which we just did with the Wi-Fi, we will disconnect the video cable. Just flip up on that retainer, pull that out, and unweave it from the little passages. So now all we have to do is just remove the hinge screws, and we can separate the display assembly from the palm rest. It has to be in a fully open position or somewhere close to open, but so we're going to save that for after we remove the motherboard, but it does look pretty easy to get to and remove, so that's definitely a good thing. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and remove this fan assembly. Connector just slides out, get your fingernails on those tabs, and then we're going to remove these screws, or loosen the screws because they are retained on the back. You'll notice on the heatsink the numbers are stamped into the metal. That's the order that you're supposed to tighten it, just you know, a Z pattern or N, whatever, just a crossways pattern so it tightens down evenly on the new thermal paste. It doesn't matter which order you remove them. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and remove the fan screws. Alright, so this one did not come with a hard drive installed, but they did leave the caddy in there, so we'll go ahead and remove that. Just flip up on the little connector, and then that will allow you to remove the SATA cable. Once we have the rest of the screws out, we can remove the caddy and the SATA connector. Alright, give it another look. We have an in-out board over here with, it looks like, the cram battery, so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this, and then we will remove it from the palm rest assembly. Some pretty strong adhesive on this ribbon, so just make sure to pull up on it evenly. Get the last two screws, and then we have the side USB port with the cram battery, CMOS battery, whatever. Okay, so we got our keyboard connection and the touchpad. So we'll just go ahead and finish removing the ribbons and cables that are connected to the motherboard. And speaker, just pull straight out. This one has a flip up type. Same with the touchpad, just flip it up, remove it. Looks like we got the power button. And one more up here. I do see a ribbon. Okay, that goes underneath. Not a concern. Okay, so we have the DC jack connector. Same deal. We just work that out using the tabs. And I do see this hinge here is partially blocking the motherboard. So we can go ahead and actually just remove the hinge screws and swivel that up and out of the way. And since we're going to do it anyways, I might as well hit the other side. So these hinges are big enough to basically swivel up by hand, which makes this kind of thing a little bit easier. The small hinges, you have to open the display to open them because they're so tight. You can't really get a good grip on them. These are large, so we'll just open them and flip them out of the way. Okay, so hinge went up and exposed the DC jack. I'll go ahead and get that. And we will finish removing the motherboard screws and remove the motherboard. Okay, just give it a gentle wiggle, make sure all the screws have been removed, and just slowly turn it over, make sure there's no ribbons attached to the other side. And we have removed the motherboard. Okay, so not much left. We have the power button. Looks like they used a smaller Phillips bit, so I'm going to switch back to the 1.5 and remove that power button screw. And I'll just carefully peel the ribbon back. Looks like they got some tape here, so we'll have to kind of pick that up. It's actually kind of riveted also with the keyboard. Okay, so I got the tape out of there and we can remove the power button board. Alright, and since we've already undone the hinges, we can go ahead and separate the palm rest. Okay, so it looks like the lid needs to be open about 90 degrees to clear that palm rest. Okay, so give it another look. We have just a few screws on the top here to replace the touchpad. Speakers are held on by grommets, and the keyboard is not really replaceable, I would say. I've heard people, they break these and then reattach the bracket somehow with some glue, but it's probably better to just buy it as an assembly. Okay, that actually looks like not sure what that is. I thought I got the power button, but there is another board right here, so that might actually be the power button. But it does look like it's just another small Phillips screw to remove that, so I'm going to take that off. So we'll just peel that ribbon up, and this board is nice and loose. So since I have slack on this ribbon, I'm going to gently peel up from this side. These really thin ribbons I try to be really careful with because they do tend to rip quite easily. So this board isn't really held on by anything, it's just kind of wedged in there. So let's see if we can just wiggle that out somehow. It's just a tiny little tab over here that's kind of holding that. Okay, so you can see it's nice and loose. It's just held on by a little tab right here. So I'm going to work on that later, but that's pretty much how you get that off. Just need to work on it a little bit, and that should come straight out. Right, now for the display assembly, and I am assuming this is like most other bezels. And if you have a little bit of fingernail, you can kind of get it on the inside of that bezel and then just start popping it up and off of the screen, and try not to press too hard on the screen with your fingertips. Corners can be kind of a pain, so just get the two sides leading up to it, and then should be able to just do both at the same time to pop that thing off. Helps to kind of push into while you're pulling up with your fingers. Once you've popped it gently all the way around, then you'll have easy access to the inside. Alright, continuing on, this looks like we have easy access now to the LCD screws and also the hinge bracket assembly. So we'll go ahead and remove this LCD first, since you're most likely going to want to open the screen up to replace the LCD. Just remove the 4 LCD screws. And then the video cable is usually held on the back with some adhesive, usually a tape strip, so I'm expecting this will be the same. So we'll just gently flip that up, and I'll show you the other side. Okay, so we got a nice view of the video cable connector. So we have a piece of adhesive tape here. You just want to get a corner started and just peel it the rest of the way up and off. And just be careful at the very end. You don't want the tape to give suddenly and then yank on that connector. So once you got that peeled back, there's just a little tiny bar here. So just take your fingernail and flip it downwards. And once you have that removed, you can just lift up on that LCD, and the cable should just pull straight down out of that connector. And that's how you remove the LCD. So it looks like on this model you don't even need to remove the display assembly. As long as you can get that bezel off without taking the screen off, then you're good to go. You just pop the bezel off, 4 screws for the LCD, unstick the video cable, and swing the little bar out of the way, and you should be able to replace that LCD really easy. Okay, so now we're going to remove the hinges. Alright, once you have all the hinge screws out, I'm just going to shake the hinge a little bit and get it unstuck from the back cover, and there's a couple little tabs here. Alright, so now we can finish kind of unweaving the video cable from the back cover. Just pull it free from the little channels, and once you make it to the webcam, if you need to remove the webcam, you should always pry from the top or the bottom, never from either side, because it'll kind of bend it on its weak axis. So I just usually take the fingernail and just pop it up, and it'll unstick from the back cover, and then you can remove the video cable and or webcam. Okay, so the Wi-Fi antennas I'm going to leave with the back cover assembly, but they're just stuck on. Same with that display cable. It's just kind of stuck on with the little plastic tape here, and then of course you just unweave it from the little channels in the back cover. So that is it. That is how you disassemble a Dell Inspiron 15-3000 series. This was a 3593. So if this video helped you at all, or you found it informative, please like and subscribe. Thank you.